Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. So this is I said yesterday that it was like not very Disney. It is a Disney film. It's done with Jerry Bruckheimer, so it has a very strong Pirates of the Caribbean feel. Yeah, you'll see that in certain characters how everybody sort of relates to each other. I have a feeling that probably the same people wrote the thing. Uh, I can't be sure of that, but it has the same feel, the same pace. Uh, in this case, we have uh, a rogue young man. Well, he's a little boy who lives in the streets, Aladdin style. But instead of finding a genie, he is taken in by a kindly king who sees him standing up for his friend, and he becomes a prince of Persia, um, along with two other. The king has two other sons that he also who have eyes on his throne at some point. But he figured, you know what? Let's take in this poor boy who has no family, and he doesn't want my throne, so maybe I can give him a good life. So the king is kind of a great guy, taking in Jake Gyllenhaal. By the way, main character, Destan, Destan, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. By the way, this is a 2010 film. It runs an hour and 57 minutes. It is, yeah, he's a sort of our Will Turner for this not Pirates of the Caribbean thing. Again, this takes obviously is Prince of Persia. It's based on the video game from 1989. There's other iterations of it that have been created even just a few years before this movie came out, but it was very much a side-scrolling 2D uh, action adventure game where you leap over pits of spikes and do all sorts of jumping and fighting and swordplay and things like that. So it's based on a very old video game, but it's surprising that it took this long to be made. And despite the video game curse, where just about every video game movie ever made usually is not does not do well at the box office. I'm feeling I don't know if this did well or not. I didn't really that kind of thing doesn't really matter so much to me, but um, we didn't get a sequel. Let's just say that. Usually, the evidence of a sequel with all the original cast means that it did well at the box office. We have seen no such sequel. So, yeah. So we get Jake Gyllenhaal as Destan. We see them 15 years later. He's all grown up, and he's a bit of a loose cannon. He likes to fight, and he's never shows up on time. He doesn't take any kind of royalty seriously, but King Dad pretty much puts up with it, and his brothers are like, "We're warriors. We're gonna take over this city. That's beautiful city. That's our job, and you're gonna help us, Destan." And he's like, "Sure, whatever, fine, I can do it." And he's so athletic, and he spends a lot of time with his shirt off, and he for the ladies or dudes. So he spends a lot of time with his shirt off when he is and when he isn't um, in going to battle. He scales this impossible wall by men shooting bolts, arrows, but bolts towards the wall of this castle as he leaps to each one and then climbs up and then breaches the wall and all sorts of stuff. I don't want to ruin all the action for you if you haven't seen it. I have not seen this movie before. Admit it. I have to admit that. I have not seen this movie before. If I did, I do not recall it in any way whatsoever. He's very athletic and he's very dashing. He's a hero. He's a good guy. But once they conquer the city, which he had very big hand in, it's in the success of the conquering. Turns out that the princess who runs the place, Tamina, uh, beautiful, gorgeous woman played by Gemma Gemma Arterton. I don't know if I've seen her in a whole lot of other stuff other than this, but she she has a secret. She has a very big secret, something that she needs to hold on to, and it is the MacGuffin for this film, which is a dagger that contains the sands of time, which allows the owner to press a button on the hilt or on your controller, and allows you to go back in time a full minute to prevent yourself from dying or prevent a mistake that would happen, and with your full awareness of what had just happened, you can then go correct it. So that was a game mechanic. I'm not sure which version. There's so many versions of the game. Which version included that? There is a version called Sands of Time which came out in 2008, which I don't know if that was meant to be in conjunction with the film or was the inspiration for the film. But yeah, it's been so long since I've played the original. But yeah, it's kind of a big deal. And so yeah, that becomes a mechanic in this thing where somebody might die or something might go wrong, and all you have to do is press the button on the dagger, and only you who's holding it can go back and reset things. So neat little game mechanic, neat little movie mechanic, and so yeah, it gets played into every so often when needed. And so thing is, there's some people who really want this thing, and it turns out that certain people have to die in order for that person to get that thing, and Destan is blamed for the murder, and he suddenly is like, I didn't kill anybody. What are you doing? So he is on the run, along with her. That's Tamina. So the two of them, are on the run together, and they have a, flirting, bickering kind of thing that you normally get in these kind of films. This borrows a lot from like Indiana Jones and obviously Pirates of the Caribbean, like I told you. So there's lots of romantic bickering before they even realize they're in love. So yeah, I don't want to ruin anything else there for you. That's pretty much the gist of it, and they have to figure out who is responsible for their situation and how they can get the dagger back to where it belongs, so that nobody can take control of it and change the past or the present. So anything else I tell you would be a spoiler. By the way, other people you'll recognize in this are Ben Kingsley, who plays Destan's uncle, the king's brother, and Alfred Molina. He plays Sheik Amar. Sheik Amar. Now, Sheik Amar is a guy who Destan Jake runs into in his travels in trying to escape. And turns out that Sheik Amar, he runs a sort of a community out in the desert that there's a hive of scum and villainy kind of legend about them. Really, he's just a libertarian who basically doesn't want to pay taxes and builds up a reputation for himself that he and his people are much scarier than everybody thinks. So yeah, he makes a big deal about not paying taxes. So he is sort of the spiritual successor to Johnny Depp, Johnny Depp's Captain Jack in this movie. He's swarthy, he's funny, he's got all sorts of other deals going on, and he's got an attitude, and he's Johnny Depp 30 years down the line, 20 years down the line. I don't want to insult Alfred Molina. He's a great actor, but he's an elder Jack Sparrow in this movie. So, and he's always great, so he's awesome. Ben Kingsley is also awesome, playing roles he is well suited for. However, one of the other things before I get into the next part here, there's a guy named Steve Toussaint. Okay, he plays, I don't know, he's an African warrior that he has bound his life to Alfred Molina's character because he saved his life, and it's let's forget about that whole thing. I've personally chosen to enslave myself to you, but he's one of my favorite characters in this because he is a weapons expert where he throws daggers and knives and swords and whatever else he needs, whatever gets into his hands. He's Gambit. He can just throw however he likes. He's Bullseye from the Marvel comics. He can throw anything and it hits the mark. And he, thankfully, once they introduce him, once they get him, when there's a big battle going on, he gets to go one-on-one with one of the bad guys who is pretty much his equal, and that battle turns out pretty well. And yes, there's a ton of CGI, digital effects. This is, I don't know if this got to be part of the whole 3D thing, because 2009 is when Avatar really took off. This may not have been released in time to get that last minute 3D upgrade, but they were all trying to do at that time. But this is, there's a lot of CGI, but the great thing is it's not so grainy and garish and or shiny, and it doesn't look fake most of the time. Yes, there's big sweeping shots over desert cities and villages and other things like that, where you're just like, yeah, these don't exist anymore. And also, underground and just all these elaborate sets. There's some pretty cool practical looking sets. In fact, some of the digital sets, I would almost suspect they might be some of the ones I thought were real might be digital. So they spent a good chunk of money making this look good. Actually, the digital effects age well. Like there's snakes that are obviously digital. They look realistic. I'm usually a bit more critical on such things, but it's not the case. It doesn't look like crap. So really good, really good. So I'm going to get to the next part here. Something that hasn't aged so well and probably wouldn't fly in the modern times we live in right now, because people are just a little bit more up in arms about it. This is a movie about the Prince of Persia, and there is barely a Persian in a speaking part whatsoever. So it's basically a bunch of British people, white British people playing Persians, and Jake Gyllenhaal playing a British person playing a Persian. Yeah. So, yeah, just like, hey, let's make a movie about Mulan and have everybody be Chinese, everybody be British or American. That wouldn't fly today. When people made a big deal about, what was it? Oh, Ghost in the Shell. It's like, hey, Scarlett Johansson, great actress. She's born for that kind of action role, but not an Asian actress, not where the people who created the character, the whole mythology, you can't get an Asian actress to play it. Apparently not, because Americans will only watch white people play these roles. You got to get box office names in there. That's the attitude. And this, if this was made in 2020, let's just say they probably wouldn't have Jake Gyllenhaal in the role. If they did, there would be no end to people being really pissed off, and then rightfully so. I think, it's a, what was it? What's his name? He played a Mexican, Charlton Heston. Played a Mexican in The Heart of Darkness. Makes no sense. I'm pretty, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And that was a long time ago. Like, yeah, you couldn't, and half the time you get people playing Indians and old cowboy things that they are not Native Americans whatsoever. It's just creepy. It's time to separate ourselves from that. All right, I'm getting off that soapbox, but yeah, this is a movie that doesn't age well when it comes to the racial casting of the speaking cast. Yes, there's plenty of Middle Eastern people in the background in some of these shots, but yeah, it's kind of a missed opportunity there, and it probably wouldn't have done even half as well at the box office as a result, but at least not in America. Probably would have cleaned up in India and China, who knows. That's all the box office people care about these days. Or actually just having a theater that's open to play the movie. That's what they really care about. But that's not happening anytime soon, at least through most of America or the world, where we can't believe in science. Okay, I'm done with that. Yeah. All right. So that was Prince of Persia. It's I think it was a really fun movie. It looks great. Again, if you want another Pirates of the Caribbean movie that doesn't involve Johnny Depp or Pirates of the Caribbean, this fits that bill for at least the aesthetic of that type of movie. So if you've missed this, you've never watched it before, you like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but a little bit drier and not as wet, this is it. This is for you. All right. Here we go. Let's pick tomorrow's episode.
591.
591. Well, that's not the Star Wars one. I'll tell you that much. I just checked this and it's reset itself. 591. Come in. 591. Huh. Okay. All right. Well, we're getting another one of those. I have a feeling it's early 2000s. Uh, Sequels to our blockbuster Disney Renaissance age animation films. And this is one of their sequels. And it's the sequel to the one that kind of kicked off the Renaissance. It is The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. All that effort to get a boy and some legs, and now we're going back to the sea. Maybe the marriage didn't work out. I don't know. No, I think it did, because she has a daughter or something. Anyway, we're returning to the sea with The Little Mermaid, Little Mermaid 2. See you back here tomorrow on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. Bye.